And we are live. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Kasanova podcast, the number one podcast in Hawaii. I'm your host, Mekel Kasanova. I've got with me the one, the only Daniel Lindholm. Thank you so much for being on the show. He's the composer for many of the songs, the character themes for Street Fighter V Arcade Edition, such as Ed, G, and my main man, Cody. Please introduce yourself.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Daniel Lindholm. I'm a Swedish guy, and I've just been involved writing music since I was 9 years old. Started like in 1989, and just been going through music school, education, having all this kind of music theory things with me. And then there was this point in my life where I said, you know what should I become? And my father said, you play a lot of instruments. You should become a music producer. I was like, what does a music producer do? And I was like, well, so we had to look for some kind of university education. The closest thing we got to find was like, either you become a studio musician or you become a studio engineer. And it was like, nothing that bridged these gaps to become like a full-fledged music producer. So I found like a substitute program that was just immersed a year prior to that, made by the Swedish Disney studio. And they had this music and computer and sound design program. And I said, that actually looks very interesting. So I applied for that. And just a few years later, PlayStation 2 came out. And then a few years down the line, Metal Gear Solid 2. And that's when I start to hear the music here doesn't sound like it needs to have a programmer, because all up to that point, maybe a few years before we got the red letter CDs, everything was like computer programmed. The SID chip for the Commodore 64, the Nintendo 3 channels, like, yeah, that chip music was not my deal at the time. But today I do chip music for sure. But that's when I heard Harry Gregson Williams had scored the cutscenes for Metal Gear Solid 2. I was like, you know, we're there now where musicians, composers can actually start to use the medium to their advantage and do something creative with it. But of course, in my dreams, I always wanted to be a film composer. But of course, the film industry in Sweden is not really booming. It's like maybe a Viking action movie a year or something like that. Or, yeah, I mean, something really bad like a Swedish Agent. So it's like the industry for film and computer games at the time was not big in Sweden. So I was looking at the United States as well. But still, the social structure of Sweden and the EU is very similar, because it's not about your degree. It's not about your merits. It's all about who you know. And I basically know nobody in my country. So I was basically an outcast. And I thought, you know, Japan. I actually love stuff from Japan a lot. But I also see opportunities, because in Japan, everybody's like on the same level. And if one guy is applying for that job, my chances just increase, because I know I can do it, because I have the credentials and nobody knows anybody. So everybody is on the level playing field. And I took that from there, and that led me into be able to start writing computer game music since 2008.
That's amazing. What was the first game that you actually got to compose for?
Fun question, actually. I was supposed to write music for Pro Evolution Soccer 2008. And that was actually more like this agency that had put up like actually my girlfriend at the time, she found this news like a competition in a newspaper. He said, you should apply for this one. So I was looking further into the ad, and he said, we're looking for music for a sports game for this Japanese AAA company. They don't mention any names, but I know that gotta be Konami.
Yeah.
No other way, it's a Konami, right? A soccer game, right? Yeah. So I just like read through the article many times. I said, please send in as much music as you can, but if you just like do one kind of genre, just send 3 songs or something like that. But if you would like to do anything, send in maximum 7 songs. 2 of them needs to have vocals, not sampled vocals, but real lyrics and stuff like that. So I started prodding like crazy for a whole week, one song per day. Anything from like Big Beat, a Prodigy, some Junkie XL, then some German orchestral mixed with Brit pop. So you get that kind of Champions League kind of feel to it. Then some Latin Ibiza techno, and I just sent it all in. And then I just waited, and 2 weeks later, I received a phone call. And the agent says, "Is this Daniel Lindholm?" I was like, "Yeah, we're speaking." "Well, we're from this agency who arranged this competition. So we got some bad news and some good news." "Okay, what's the bad news?" "Well, we're thinking that this company is crazy for not picking you for this project. However, we just realized that you have such a, like, no style seems to be like a problem for you. You're actually what we would say a real producer. But you're the first guy we ask here if you would like to start something new with this agency, a composer's pool." It's like, a composer's pool? Well, the thing is that this agency has more or less just been assigning voice actors or models and musicians, but not really been able to send or offer the service of creative works for Japanese companies. So they thought about me, I would be like one of the first people to do that. But they said, we're not going to only offer this to you, but we're going to give it a chance to 7 other people as well. So we're going to create this pool of composers. But don't tell anybody you were the first one that we call about this, because you really sparked something here. And that's how we got together. And just a few weeks later, 7 composers of all, or producers, we came together, and we got one offer to produce music for Winning 11, Playmaker 2009, or Pro Evolution Soccer 2009 for the Nintendo Wii. Oh, wow. So this was my first game. So I'm actually celebrating a 10-year anniversary this year on my career. So it was exactly to the date today.
Yeah, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Yeah.
So one of the questions like I wanted to ask you, since you are living in Japan, like what is it like living in Japan, and what influences from like the culture to the society, have led to having an influence on the types of music composition that you've done?
Oh, that's actually funny you mentioned that, because I mean, I thought it was going to be here like a wheel that could help Japanese companies to have Western quality or Western style music for games that are going to go overseas, right? But I've actually been offered to write Japanese music for Japanese games. And for me, I always felt a little bit terrifying, because I'm here in their culture. And I know since a child, I watched a lot of anime, or I played a lot of Japanese games. But the fear always, as a foreigner writing in other cultures' music, is like, I hope I'm not turning this into a, that is called Asian riff, like being totally insensitive to other people's cultures. I try to avoid that altogether. And it's like, I remember an interview that Hans Zimmer did when he was writing music for The Last Samurai, because basically he was writing Japanese music for the entire world. And I was asking a lot of Japanese people, what did you think about Hans Zimmer's Last Samurai score? And they say it's very old and new at the same time, but it does not take it away that it actually feels like a Japanese score. So it's like, I was listening into that kind of way. How can I keep it neutral and not offend anybody? And so, yeah, I've actually been writing music for Japanese samurai games like Samurai Spirits, or Samurai Showdown, as you call it, but for pachinko machines. But it's still SNK canon games. And Nobunaga's Ambition, about the shogun, right? And so I've been doing a lot of historical game-based music, basically, for Japanese culture. And for me, I always thought it was strange first, but I'm glad I pulled it off. And yeah, let's see what happens next on that front. But let me see your question again. Influence the culture and society, a little influence on the types of music. Okay. So the society in itself, I try to keep the society as an organic thing coming to me. And if there's a new movie coming out, I would probably like to watch it just to see the music. What is the fad for the Japanese music today? I mean, you look at, they have a lot of these now. Bleach, live action version of Bleach is coming out here, and it's like rock and roll mixed with Japanese music. So they actually have a tendency to blend styles, East meets West, in many ways now these days. So I don't have any fear of coming into the Asian riff that was very popular in the 60s to the 80s here. So yeah, I feel it's actually very organically creative music for these companies here right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And do you have any composer, you know, be it in video game industry or the movie industry, that has inspired you?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I mean, crazy enough, I think when I started with music, I did not think about having composers, like writing music. I was looking at pop stars and stuff like that. So I would say in the beginning, I guess it was Michael Jackson. But after Scandals, I just realized I cannot really have any people to look up to, but I can possibly be inspired by people. So I've probably, as an 80s kid, I really liked music from Basil Poledouris, the Robocop score, the Conan the Barbarian. I really enjoy Arthur B. Rubinstein's for his very first use of hybrid electronic orchestral scores for Blue Thunder and War Games. He has that kind of cool militaristic style that I actually try to honor his work in Resident Evil 6 by writing stuff that Arthur B. Rubinstein might have done in the 1983. Jerry Goldsmith, obviously Rambo comes to mind. And then you have the guy who wrote music for Top Gun. Man, now I forget. He did also Beverly Hills Cop. Harold Faltermeyer. Harold Faltermeyer. So I'm kind of stuck with those guys. Hans Zimmer, he's constantly innovating stuff. He's actually using a lot of game style music writing these days, because he basically writes music to films that doesn't even exist. So he's actually playing it safe, and he sends off a lot of channels. So the music is actually being produced or written by the editor these days.
Wow.
So I would say that Hans Zimmer has actually streamlined his musical ideas into a computer game way of writing these days. That's what I feel, at least, especially when it comes to like the Dark Knight or something. But Interstellar, I would say that's a true score for sure. But the Dark Knight, it feels like computer game music. It's just fading in and out, different layers of instruments. Like when you don't have enough time, just make a mood and give the editor the choice to edit the thing. So yeah, I guess that's how it works. So those are basically my inspirators for this world. But if we look on the Japanese side, I would say, well, the person who wrote the first Ghost in the Shell, Kenji Kawai, that's his name. And then these amazing ladies who wrote music for Street Fighter 2 really contributed on Final Fight. And then you have Juzo Koshiro for Streets of Rage.
Yep.
Definitely inspiration for Ed's theme for sure. You can hear a little bit of Juzo Koshiro in there. So yeah, that's all in all for now. I can say these people inspire me a lot.
Awesome. And what is your composition process for writing music?
Oh, well, since I write many styles of music, I actually have no approach. I mean, it's like I'm using the Bruce Lee philosophy of like, what is your technique? Is to have no technique, and I apply that into music as well. And it's like, maybe sometimes I begin with a chord structure idea. Maybe sometimes I just use a melody and arrange it around that. Or I have a rhythmic idea. But if we take the example with Ed, that was very much like music first demanded by okay, what do the people like? What should we have here? You know, we have this Eminem song, "Lose Yourself." Maybe we can use that as a basis. It's like, but the thing is that I auditioned for Street Fighter, and so they gave me the song. And can you do something like that? So after 3 hours, I sent in a rough sketch. And it's like, how long did it take you to make this? And I said, 3 hours. Hip hop is very simple. All right. Okay, but all right. Okay, you've proven the fact you can actually replicate the sound, but now can you make it a little bit different so Marshall Mathers doesn't sue us? Yeah, sure, no problem. So I added the orchestral elements. I added the horns. I added a small brass section, 2 layers of drums, and then I changed the bass line to become more like the Digital Underground, the Humpty Dance with that boom, whoa, whoa, you know, like it's so it's like an influence of all my experience of hip hop. But I'm actually not a hip hop kid. I never listened to hip hop really. So, but I do have an image of like Run DMC and Aerosmith. That's all I got to it. But thanks to this project, I actually got to listen to a lot of good hip hop and draw influences from that, and get working on just a beat. So that's cool. But the lyrical side for Ed's theme, though, that was like when I was almost done with the song, and they said, "Yeah, we're gonna have lyrics for this song." I was like, shit, do I have to write lyrics and rap too? It's like a white guy from Sweden doing an all-American rap? Nah. They said, don't worry, we got this guy here. His name is Caleb Combs, and he's in Tokyo right now. He's from LA. So we're going to send this music to him, and he's going to write some lyrics and rap for it. And so they actually did 2 versions of the rap. And I just felt the way he was rapping in version A. And actually, I told myself before I listened to his rap, if I hear the word fist in there, then it's going to be a winner. So then I pressed play and I listened to the rap, and I heard the word "slam it with my fist." I was like, oh yeah, fuck that. That's great, you know. Oh, sorry. Am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
Hey, you can.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I know there's like a restriction in. So when I heard that, I was just jumping the roof, and I said, yeah, that's the winner. That's the winner for me. So then I started mixing in the rap into my track, and it felt very aggressive in the A version. The B one was more a little bit laid back. So in the end, I did still have to tell Capcom, please choose version A. And they actually agreed and choose the version that I really liked a lot. So
awesome, man.
So,
that theme was amazing. I did my reaction video to that when they announced him last year when he came out. I actually broke my other pair of headphones because I was like, man,
really?
Yeah, because
I gotta see that.
I was jumping all over the place. I was like, man, the music, the beat, because you know I produce music as well. I do anywhere from R&B, hip hop, singing as well, but. Yeah, you know, when you said that hip hop is really simple, that's so true because it's just there's not much to it as far as like progression. But the way you built that song, I was like, man, this is Street Fighter? I'm like, is this feeling like some Street Fighter 3 Third Strike? Like I felt like the spirit of that was coming into it. I was like, man, this is amazing. I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hard part about I mean, when we look at hip hop as a structure, it's like, yeah, when do the chords come in? But it's still the same beat going over and over again. So my goal was basically, how can I make it more dynamically, more interesting? So that's where I decided, let's add the orchestra in there. And I was not aware that he was going to be wearing this militaristic uniform at the end of the game. So I just had very little knowledge about him in the hood and Eminem, you know. But I had no idea that my music would match up to his uniform style of characters. And one way to actually make sense for me to make the music more dynamic by adding the orchestra in there in one way. And that's where I feel like the rapper also get to feel that he's changing from the verse into the chorus in a natural way. And I also feel that his voice gets stronger at one point, and I think that really helps. So it's not mumble rap. Oh man, I can't take mumble rap.
Yeah, I hate mumble rap. Like anything beyond 2012, 2010, I can't listen to. Like I cut on the radio.
When your voice is bad enough, you need to auto-tune the shit out of that. Then you're done, man. No talent.
I mean, and that's the thing that's so amazing. Like when I listen to a lot of these artists, like to come up to do hip hop, to do the R&B, like when I've been to shows out here, and I'm like, you guys sound horrible. You already sound horrible on your music, but you sound worse in person. How do you do that?
Yeah. So basically, I don't go to concerts or anything. I really like to see people sitting in the studio live streaming and just look at the process and coming up with stuff. But when they cannot pull off the things live, skip the autotune. That's all I can say. Yeah.
So I also want to ask you, like, as far as like getting into like the video game and movie composition industry, like, is there like an educational background requirement or anything that's required for people to try and get in?
That's a good question. I mean, if you're looking at people at the indie scene, most of the people they're like self-taught in one or the other. But I think it helps if you're gonna communicate with a music director, for example, that you have some basic knowledge of music expressions like Italian music language or jazz terms, if it comes to that. That will help you at least to communicate to the music supervisor, because he himself is like a trained musician. But from my point of view, I think it's always good to have knowledge about how to write songs, have basic music pop theory, for example, learn to look at all the different musical styles, because I would say like this: why I get so many jobs these days is because I'm not stuck into a genre. And so I think it's very important for people not to just lock themselves into, I'm just going to do hip hop. Now, try to look for other ways, because if you're not flexible, then you're going to be offered very limited amount of jobs as well. So I would say listen to all music. Try to replicate certain parts of the music in one way or the other. In my case, like if we take Resident Evil 6, for example, Neo Umbrella Assault, that track, and when you don't see it at the moment, but when you listen to it again and you see where I got the inspiration, I was actually looking at Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I was like, when he's fighting the Nazi under the plane wing, I just really love that rhythm section there. Dum 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 dum. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. But now I would like to make it more into a high-tech military version of that. And of course, Nazis are bad. Neo Umbrella, Neo Nazis. Yeah, I can actually tie that together somehow. And that became like I honoring John Williams with a drum pattern and adding my own orchestral things on top of that. So but of course, we can never be fully we can never learn everything at once. I would never consider myself that I'm completely finished with my education. Now it's a constant, like out of the blue, another composer will come up with a new way, or a sound designer, or a Hans Zimmer. That is always he finds new experimental ways to break all the rules, and that's like, now everybody has to ape Hans Zimmer again for the next 5 years. So I think it's really hard for people to find their own voice in commercial games, because it's all driven by what's been perceived as popular at the year. So I mean, I think Resident Evil 6 was a curse of 3 or 4 different movie trends that was happening at the time. There was Batman, it was Hong Kong action cinema, it was James Bond spy thriller, and then you had the gothic horror score for Leon Kennedy, which is very traditional in a sense. So I think it's really hard for us to have our own identity, but if you can write an original melody or a new theme inside that realm, then you can actually start to get that catchy trend that people like can associate. Oh, that's their theme. That's their theme. I think that's what's missing in film music today is thematic writing, and I would really love to go back to that because the last 10 years, I have not been able to whistle a single melody when I step outside the movie theater, and I think that's a big problem because the golden days. I want to bring back the thematic writing, and I think they could actually write. But I guess it's the short deadlines that are music composers are given. Like, what was it? Michael Giacchino only had like 4.5 weeks to write Rogue One because the composer decided I'm not gonna do all rewriting my entire score again. So he started from scratch for 4.5 weeks. So the working process became faster, but the music in itself is missing identity in that sense. So I think musicians or composers are brought in very late in the process, so they don't really get the chance to like read the script, look at the character, and developing themes for these characters. And I think that's something we're missing here, and that's why I just felt like Street Fighter. Every character in the games all had their own theme. So creating a strong theme for a character, that's the main point of the music that I get to write. And so from that point, I'm very, very happy to bring back some kind of the golden age thematic writing for the games now, at least.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What has it been like, working with Capcom and with Konami and other, even Sega with the Yakuza series? Like, how has it been working with those companies?
Well, Konami, I would say Konami in itself, they know what they want. They're very, very strict, but that's because they don't want to lose a winning formula when it comes to their soccer games. Every year it's the same thing, maybe an upgraded engine for their stuff. I think when I jumped in with Konami, it was just like, oh, this is your first game, just do it. And we took it from there. But also at the time, it was that Konami never really had the money that EA had when they were doing the FIFA series. They could not really license artists for their games. So they thought, let's have an imitation soundtrack or something that sounds European that would fit all over the world. So that's why we got hired in the first place, to help them before Western artists could see potential in licensing the music for Konami later on. So in one way, it was actually pretty cool to help them out that way. But in no other way was that like, it was not difficult. It was kind of easy work. But I think the more crazy the studio is, the more fun I have, especially when it comes to like Lollipop Chainsaw. Because I mean, first I got this image from my German partner who was working at this agency at the time. He said, "You know what? Imagine cute girl and a cheerleader outfit, rainbows, chainsaws, and zombies." Like, I saw like a 2D scroller, like yeah, that's my mind concept. It's a very, very simple gameplay, like 80s, 90s beat 'em up. That's all I could see, but I had no idea it's gonna be this beautiful model 3D, and then this crazy humor. And then I heard James Gunn wrote the script for this game. I was like, James Gunn, really? Count me in. All right, I'm in. So I was like, the thing is that, all right, you're a Swedish guy. You should write music for the Viking stages. And I hear you like funk music. You're going to do the neon funk stages as well. So it was also the thing that no one actually, except they gave me a few referential media or music material, like listen to this band, listen to that band. But in the end, I actually got to write my own sound for these genres. So it was pretty cool. So anything I did actually went in. I didn't need to do many corrections. So the only thing we had to do was like 2 versions of the song. One that's like normal level, and when the battle is more intense, we add a few more layers on top of it. So that was like my first approach at doing dynamic, or we would say, we have a term for it. We don't say reactive music, because that's something completely different. We're doing the term. Now it gets lost for me, but the term is basically the music will react when there's more action on screen, more tracks will be heard, basically. And then when the action dies off, the music goes back. So it's like a dynamic soundtrack.
Awesome.
Yeah, but it had a very different word when they were using it. I'll come back to that later. Let's see if I remember the word. Yeah, I don't remember the term now, but I know we were talking about it a lot during Resident Evil 6. Yeah.
And you know,
adaptive music. Adaptive music is the term. Yeah. Yes.
It's, you know, speaking of Resident Evil 6, I wanted to ask you, when you were composing for both Resident Evil 6 and Resident Evil Revelations 2, what helped you create an OST that basically that soundtrack to me for both games was just phenomenal, but it had such great frightful elements in it. Like, what inspired you? Like, what was the process?
Now, the funny thing about Resident Evil 6, before I even got the job, I didn't know I was auditioning for Resident Evil 6. So, and here was the thing. We actually had to pay to enter. So the agency told me that it's going to cost you about 20,000 yen to enter this competition. But that fee that we pay is actually a guarantee from Capcom that they will actually listen to the material I'm sending in. Because if they announce we have an audition and the people send in lots of material, most of them maybe not serious, or it's like very low bar quality of music. But if you pay, they guarantee to listen to your music there too. So there's a chance for you to break in. But I had no idea at the time I was auditioning for it. All I got was like an email saying, "Hey, we have a possible project and we think you would fit it. But here's the thing: you have to audition for it. But we will pay your fee, no problem." I was like, "Okay." Do you know what this is about? No, we cannot tell you anything yet, but we're going to send you some documents over your way. So they sent me 3 pages of just text, no images, nothing. It was like, read it all out. And I was like, okay, so this is going to be containing 2 songs. You're going to be writing a splash screen. And imagine the splash screen like it would be something that's just going to last for about a minute, like an opening for a TV show or something like that. But remember, this is for a game, so it needs to catch the attention of the player. It needs to resemble the world of like military against some unknown force, blah, blah, blah. And then the second segment would be an in-game segment. So I had basically need to read a story and interpret that into musical terms. And the thing was that I started with the splash screens. That was about 1 minute of music. And I just drew inspiration from Basil Polidori's RoboCop, Jerry Goldsmith's Rambo 2 score. And since I know there's going to be military-style action, I thought those are like a good match in heaven to make. So I managed to plot out the entire song, and I sent it in to them and said, "Oh, we want it to be more catchy. Can you make it more catchy?" It's like 80s catchy? Really? Okay, sure. So I was spending a lot more time writing the melody rather than spending time on rhythmic or harmonial chord structures and dynamic writing. But the melody, I never got the melody right. So I said, I'm going to put this off for a while. Let's go to the other segment. So I get another text document. It says, so part 1, the music should, our heroes are forced to leave the battlefield and seek refuge in a building. 2, inside the building, they hear the dangers of the enemy lurking outside, but they're in need and in desperation to find a weapon that can turn the tide. And then 3, full out assault, music goes full blast. Retake the battle arena and finish off the mission. Boom. So that was like those 3 segments. That one I nailed, no problem. And then I went back to the splash screen again. And I only had like 3 weeks to complete this thing. So I was doing the splash screen for the next 2 weeks. And I was like, with less than 24 hours, like, okay, I'm going to do something really crazy here. I'm going to throw out all the instruments except the percussion. I'm going to rearrange the music one more time. And so I like look at my watch. It's like, okay, it's 10 o'clock now. Deadline is tomorrow at 10 a.m. Okay, if I work 10 to 4, I should be able to finish the song in itself. I sleep for maybe 2 hours, wake up at 6 o'clock, do a small mix. At 8 o'clock, I can use my speakers. And then if I have time, I will master the track from 9 to 10. And I did exactly that. And I sent it in. I was like, okay, there's nothing else I can do. It's all in the hands of anybody at Capcom at the moment. But then 2 weeks later, I get a phone call and said, hey, you remember that thing you had to audition for? Yeah. Well, we can tell you, you got the job. You're going to be writing music for Resident Evil 6. I was just jumping up and I just destroyed my lamp in the ceiling, you know. It's like, it was the same feeling I had when I got accepted into the music high school back in Sweden. So it was one of those moments again. After that, we said, okay, so in about 2 weeks, you're going to go with me and another guy here. We're going to meet up at Capcom. We're going to have business dinner. We're going to talk about the project. And that's when I got to meet my first really cool friend in Capcom, Osaka. At the time, he was my music supervisor, Mr. Akihito Narita-san. And he was very funny. First time he saw me, oh, you big stomach. Like, all right. So I got to try to lose some weight as well, which I'm doing right now. Oh. Yeah. So
I'm in the same boat. Don't worry about it.
So I mean, it's crazy when you finally figure out which game you've been auditioning for and you get the job. I mean, it's crazy. I just had no idea that somewhere in the background I heard people say there was maybe about 40 to 50 other people, most of them from LA, film people who've been auditioning for these 4 spots. So I was like, me knocking out the Hollywood elite? That's crazy. That's like.
That's amazing.
So I was just very happy. But we did have 2 guys from LA coming to the office as well to work on the game. But in total, I mean, I think we're like 12 composers in total. Most of them Capcom in-house staff. And then you had 4 foreigners to take care of the other bunch to make it more westernized. Yeah.
Oh. We got a question in the chat from Lehua Joy. She wants to know if for Resident Evil 6 audition, did you have to make scores for all the instruments that you use?
If I had to put it all on paper and have it for an orchestra to play, that was actually interesting. I thought I was going to be doing that because most parts of the scores were going to be recorded in Sydney by the Sydney Philharmonic Orchestra. But the thing was that, according to Capcom, I'm very good at virtual orchestrations. I can actually recreate an orchestral feel without actually them needing that to re-record that with a real orchestra. So I actually was saving Capcom time and money by just using virtual orchestration. So I did not need to re-record that. But I heard somewhere that maybe one of the other guys was like, I was told that my music palette would not involve any woodwinds, for example. So I stayed away from not using any woodwinds. But somewhere in my song, someone had put woodwinds in them. I was like, wait a minute, that was not what I was told. So I mean, there were a few compromises on the soundtrack, but I think all in all, it just very well. So I didn't need to do that extra step to orchestrate or have the real orchestra played in for me. So I'm very happy that I could accomplish that, all on a laptop. Remember, I just did all that on a laptop, which is crazy. Yeah.
What there's another question we had in the chat. They want to know if you use Cubase or tracker-based programs.
I'm actually in the beginning I was a tracker dude for sure. Back in the 90s I was using Atari Digicomposer, and then we got a PC, and then it became a fast tracker. And then during this time, my father got himself into, I mean, my father's a music teacher, but he also has to write music and orchestrate stuff for other things. So we started using Cubase there, but I was never a MIDI guy until in the mid-90s. That's when I started to see the potential of going over to MIDI-based systems, but we didn't use it as such. For me, I was looking at this sound canvases we had as music production tools, but it was not meant that way. But I was using sound canvases in a different way than what other students were using at the school to write music. And the music I wrote could not be executed by a real orchestra. There was not enough people to play my music. So that's when we were deciding that I should probably become a music producer instead. And but all in all, yeah. Today it's Cubase when I'm actually writing music, but I'm thinking that I should move over to Studio One version 4 that's come out soon, right? Because those are the original Steinberg guys who did their own routines for that program. I really love Cubase. Right now I'm Cubase 6 still, because it has a very neutral. It has a very neutral EQ. It doesn't feel artificial. It feels very analog. And I like that because you can actually create your own sound. I'm not a Mac guy. Even if I would use Logic, Logic always has this kind of plastic shimmery that works very well for pop music kind of clarity. But I really love Cubase for their analog sound for the moment. But I was educated on Logic 4 when it was on PC, but when they stopped making Logic 4 PC, I was lost for a while, because I do remember at one point I got to try out Cubase VST32, and it was just so many windows. I felt so lost. Just to open a plugin, you had to open up 3 windows. I was like, I felt frustrated. But then Cubase SX, I was introduced to that by my friend. I said, wow, this feels like Logic now. I feel home. So after that, I've been stuck with Logic since Cubase since 2000. So
awesome.
It's been Like, yeah. I mean, if we go back to Resident Evil 6, it was kind of funny because when I was writing music for that game, I was strictly supposed to write music for Chris Redfield's campaign. A lot of things in that campaign was very hybrid orchestral action Hollywood score. But then later, I was also asked after the meeting, actually during the sorry, I have to take that again. So we had a meeting with them, and they were talking about the different campaigns, and I was looking at Leon's campaign and said, "Oh, woodwinds and stuff like that." And I said, I don't have any good woodwinds library. So I said, nah, Leon is not my guy. Then we went to Chris Redfield, and they said, hybrid orchestra, action score, Hollywood style. Oh yeah, 5 stars on that guy. So I'm going to ask him afterwards, because I have no idea how they're going to choose people for all these campaigns. And then we got the newcomer, Jake Mueller. It was like very Hong Kong percussion-driven guy, right? And it's like, possible. So 3 stars on that. And then we have a bonus, Ada Wong, agents. I'm like, oh, like a James Bond kind of thing. Okay, 5 stars. I got to do that. So then we went to business dinner. I was asking Miss Narita-san, so who do you decide is doing all this stuff? Because I already see where I can do the best of my abilities. And I said, I would like to write music for Chris Redfield and Ada Wong. And he said, that's exactly what I want you to do. I want you for both of these people. So he had that in mind already. So I was like, wow, cool. I get to write music for these characters at certain points in the game. So that's cool. So when we were done with basically the campaign for these 2 characters, I get another question out of the blues, like, what do you feel like, we have these online modes coming on. Would you like to write music for the online games? Like, okay. So which online modes do you have in mind? Yeah, the Mercenaries, we have Agent Hunt, and we have this kind of a Tetris-style shooting mechanic called Onslaught. So I got to write these online modes as well. Sorry, my cable is a bit short. So I got to write music for online modes I did not know was supposed to be in the game. So that was a big surprise. And Mercenaries, later I've just been checking videos of people listening to the song. It's like crazy good response for the songs there. It's like, okay, I feel I'm doing something right. But it would take a long time before I got to do anything else for Capcom for a while, because I think in 2012 there was this big shift in how games are being produced, and later on you buy DLC, you download a lot of new content, and I think a lot of people were against that in 2012, but today now it's like a normal.
Yeah.
So I think 2012 was a really hard sell on the game, like, oh, content locked on disk, but no, this is just like a sub driver for you to be able to access more stuff. And of course we didn't know better back then, so I guess maybe in certain people's eyes, maybe that was a total dud. Maybe people felt like, oh, I'm not going to play Resident Evil 6. But I think Capcom is doing DLC correct these days, especially now with Street Fighter, that you can actually, if you want to spend real money on the DLC, sure, but you can earn it if you fight hard enough. And I think, yeah, that's the way to go. You know?
Yeah.
So,
and that's one of the things I noticed, like with Street Fighter V, and I see a lot of people complain about. They're like, "Oh, you got to do so much to unlock the characters," and I'm thinking to myself, "Did you play these games in the '90s when you actually had to grind to get these characters unlocked?" I think it's a whole generational difference, though, like how people perceive games now as a medium versus those of us from the '80s and '90s. But it's so funny.
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is that I did not own a console until I got to Japan, believe it or not. So I was more a computer game guy. So, I mean, the first fighting games I ever played was like International Karate and International Karate Plus on the Commodore 64. Those games are so freaking tight. And it's like, imagine, those games are perfect for like smartphones, because it's just one button input and 8-way joystick. You can put that together, and super tight controls, and the hitbox are very small. It would be the perfect 3-way tournament fighting game for sure. But of course, no one's going to do that. So I was like, if not, I have to learn to program and do my own games then. But then when I got the chance to play Tekken 3, it's like you look at the roster and it's like, holy shit, it's like only these characters, but then you start playing them, boom, you unlock a new character. I was like, holy shit, I get really addicted to it. So I think, it's probably a generation gap who is too lazy. Probably they can spend money on it, but I don't think their parents like it. So I think people should really grind, because right now these days I don't even have a PlayStation 4. I only got a PlayStation 3 so far, because until today I just felt now the games are coming the way I want them to be, like especially when it's been about loot boxes and all that shit. I never felt compelled to buy the PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One because of that business model. So I'm actually enjoying watching people on YouTube playing the fighting games. I just want to hear the reaction of towards the music and all that stuff. But now, I think now that a lot of companies are considering that you should pay $60 for a game and you can earn it in game to a certain extent without using real money, then I think we're rolling back to the way it should be. So call me a gamer that's been on ice for a while. But yeah, I think grinding has the rewards, because once you learn a character, and I mean, that's the point of it. You should grind, and then you get the other characters as a reward, because you're knowing what technique's working and stuff like that. You're getting better and better and better. But if you're just paying stuff and you cannot use the character, then you're just wasting money.
So yeah, definitely. I want to ask you before I segue into the Street Fighter talks. You've worked on a few Yakuza titles, with Yakuza Dead Souls being the most prominent one. How was it working on such basically now it's considered a legendary franchise, which it was underground for so long. I think until Yakuza 0 became their big mainstream. Everyone's hopping on Yakuza right now. But yeah, how was it working with this franchise?
Yeah, Sega is really fun company because they're like, I would say Sega's philosophy is like, oh, we got some ideas for songs we would like you to do, but if you don't like them, come up with something else. And so it's like I just felt like they're giving me the sound, and I just take it from there and I just write something else. I mean, even Yakuza, I mean, it's a huge amount of composers getting into this thing. So I actually just wrote 3 songs for each of the games. Like, yeah, here is the Japanese release of The End.
Oh, wow.
Which is Dead Souls. And then I got to do Yakuza Kurohyo 2, which is PSP only release, which is crazy. So, but for these games, they have said, okay, in this scene, we want some sad piano music. Basically, the girl's father has died. He might turn into a zombie, or he's about to die. And so write something melodramatic here that we can loop. So because it's all text-based and clicking. So we never know when the player's getting out of that state. So it was a lot of short loops that we actually wrote. But then the action segments, I think some of the tracks are actually available on iTunes. I think one title at the time, there was no titles for my songs. I just wrote a different title, but I think a song called Strain. And I wrote that song in the measure of 7/8. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1 2 3, because I would like to imitate that, like the limp of the zombies halting around a little bit, but with this aggressive guitar to raise the tension because you're surrounded by zombies all over. And so I was like, okay, that was another scenario that they just written down. So they didn't give me anything that's like character specific, because you actually have like 4 different characters. So this song probably could happen anywhere, anytime, depending on the situation. And the last song I got was very specific. And at the time, they said, okay, jump onto a vehicle, you have a machine gun, you mowing down zombies as much as you can. Can you make it a little bit like 9 Inch Nails in there? Okay, sure, no problem. So I did a kind of like, 9 Inch Nails doesn't have really good sounding guitars. It's all very dirty and gritty. It's like not so much mixing. It's more about making the mix as awful as possible rather than sounding good. So it was actually pretty fun to do that. So, I mean, I just had to maybe do a small amount of revisions. So pretty much I had a lot of freedom to compose the tracks I've ever wanted, as long as I was keeping that sound for these 3 different setups that was having. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Awesome.
But Yakuza Kurohyo 2, or Black Panther 2, Asura, that was one of the first games I actually wrote a home run. I guess you know what that term means in musical terms, right?
Yeah, I do. Can you just explain for the audience, just in case?
All right. So basically, a home run is when you produce the music and the client says, "We'll take it," like on your first try. No revisions, nothing whatsoever. So the only thing was that I had to just remove one instrument from one of the song. The rest was just cleared in. So here are 3 songs again, but there was one track where I had the saxophone. It says, "Yeah, take out the saxophone and everything is fine." So that's it. But the most amazing thing about this game, though, was that again, I wrote 3 songs, and when a game starts and you're walking into your first battle, my song's playing. The absolute first song you hear in the game is my song. Is like I call it like anger management. Yeah, he's pissed off for sure, this guy. But then, after the fight, and I was hearing all the other people's work around it, it's like, wow, they actually managed to copy my style through the entire game somehow. Very industrial, dark, Tokyo gritty thing, you know. And I felt very heartfelt when I heard what the other people have done. So I'm not sure if I did put a stamp on it, but it felt like it's like that identity is throughout the entire game. So it was one of my proudest moments for sure, very early in my career. So if buy it on import, if you know Japanese. Yeah.
Sega's an amazing company. I work with Sega constantly. I'm constantly reviewing stuff for them. I'm working on Valkyria Chronicles 4 for them, Shenmue 1 and 2, as well as Yakuza Kiwami 2. I'm working on the reviews for them. Like, they just, I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm in Hawaii. They just love me. Like, they're like, hey, Mekel, you want to review this game? I'm like, sure. I have 15 others. Okay, yeah, I'll take that one. I'll put that to the top of my list.
Yeah, they're a nice company. They're very fun. So I mean, the crazy thing is that one of the first people I met was actually Takenobu Mitsuyoshi, who wrote music for Shenmue games. I was like, but I didn't know at the time. But I told him, he asked me, "What is your favorite game?" I said, "Oh, Shenmue." "Oh, I wrote music for that one." I was like, "Oh shit!" And right across from me was the other guy who's been involved with the Yakuza series for a very long time, Sakamoto-san. And he's like working for Noisy Croak. He's the president of Noisy Croak, and he's such a funny guy. And oh man, I was just sitting in between two legends at this little party that they just set up somewhere, and I had no idea that these were like the hottest. Oh, sorry about that. They were like, they're part of my childhood, basically, these two guys. And now to be part of their companies in one way or the other, yeah, it's surreal. But I'm still here, yeah. So.
Oh man. Speaking of going back to working with Capcom and Street Fighter, so with Street Fighter, you know, music and Street Fighter just seem to go hand in hand. You know, with the varied OST of Street Fighter 2 to the hip hop inspired OST of Street Fighter 3, to the more urban feel, grunge techno of Street Fighter 4. What would you say is absolutely essential when it comes to creating not only an OST but a character theme for Street Fighter or any of the Street Fighters as a brand and as a franchise? Like, what do you think?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's great. That's a great question, because most of the characters I've written has been all original characters. So, of course, I mean, I was a Street Fighter 2 fan, a Street Fighter 2 Turbo guy, and I just felt that game is so solid for every character and their themes. It's like, it's always hard to top the legends that have been before you because they're already legendary. So how can we make all these other characters really be part of that universe? And I think there are like three factors for me when I'm looking at it. Of course, the character in itself, like that's one part I get. I do get a early concept sketch of the character, like in a PDF file or something, like very rough, not rendered. But later I might have an animation thing, and I think the animation actually dictates for me what kind of tempo or like how I can personalize the character in itself. And the third thing is basically when I do get a little bit of a like a card with, oh, this is what the characters might say in a fight, or this is what their end quotes might be, and I think that really puts me in the mindset of the character, how I should go with the music. But of course, I might have a little bit of musical direction, especially for Ed. That was he's basically Eminem reincarnated into this boy. You know, it's like hard life. He has a limited lifespan. You don't know. So he's living life balls to the walls. But then Menat, the fortune teller, is like, now the thing is that we did, even thought I was talking to a music supervisor, they were actually having different ideas what trance music is. So for me, when I'm thinking trance music, I'm thinking Goa trance, electronic. Oh, sorry. I'm thinking electronic. It's very mysterious synth pads and like very TB-303 kind of sounding synthesizers in the background. And before I even started the character, I said, I'm going to send in 3 demos to you, and you can pick which one I should start working on. And I said, no, we don't want any of that. It's like, okay, send me a track that you would like me to listen into. So they sent me a few tracks. I said, this is not trance music. This is like Boney and the Edge, the Passengers kind of ambient tracks, you know. So I would say it's like, but they managed to put this in the term of like German post-rock. I was like, okay, all right. But now we actually sewn into the genre of music that I know. Okay, this is so easy. It's just one chord going over. All I need to try to make is like a memorable melody and find ways where I can break the song into different parts, because you still need variation, even though there's one key. It's like Ed. It's all one key. How can we make it more interesting? So I think that's the hardest thing, to find a balance, and how many times you need to change your way through the song until it loops again, so it doesn't become this monotone feel. So the question's always been also about scales. I mean, sure, Menad is from Egypt, but I didn't really want to again, stereotype a culture. So I was like listening into like Joey Satriani and Steve Vai, because they're using a lot of cool Mixolydian or Dorian scales that are probably very Western style. They can have like an alien style of a culture that could really work itself in and mix with the modern sound of the character or the game in a whole. So it's just a little bit of balancing those things out. And that's how Menat was concepted, through trial and error, a lot of trial and error, until we managed to figure out what they really wanted. So sometimes their terminology in Japan might be very different from the one that we're used to in the West. So sometimes, yeah, their image is totally different from what they want sometimes. But when they get the idea to me, then okay, no problem, we'll take it from there. But the crazy thing was that after, I mean, I was just only supposed to get Ed. That was the, like, one shot. That's the only character you're going to get, so do the best you can, right? And I did my best, and then just 2 or 3 weeks later, I get a phone call. You know, we have this other character, Menat, the fortune teller, blah, blah, blah. And when I finished with her, I thought, okay, that's it. No more projects, right? And then they get back to me again with a phone call and say, hey, we have another character that's never been playable before. His name is Seku. He's Guy's master. Oh, Guy, Final Fight Guy, right? Yeah, but the thing is, we don't know exactly what he's going to sound like. So do you have any ideas? So I was like, and I got to see his character. I saw it's very flamboyant, it's macho. I look at his face, like, oh man, this guy is like, he's fusion, man. I love fusion music. And I think in the Street Fighter series, I don't think we have heard much fusion music, except for maybe, I cannot recall anything where I felt like jazz has been part of Street Fighter as much as Street Fighter Alpha series, perhaps.
Yeah.
But of course, King of Fighters, Arashi, saxophone, or like, I'm a King of Fighters fan too, obviously. So I said I would like to make something. I mean, it's crazy, because you don't go out and say, I write epic music. I would never use the term epic music, because only other people can decide if your music is epic or not. So I never put that stamp on myself. Like I said, I just want to write something memorable. I would like to make it very special. So I was like thinking, okay, he has a relationship with a original Street Fighter Final Fight character. So it needs to get there. So I had actually like 2 versions made before we got the version of Seku that we have today. And those are actually on my YouTube channel. So I'll give you the link later so you can check it out.
Okay, definitely.
But so in the beginning, it was more aching towards the Enter the Dragon Kung Fu soundtrack. I just called it, but since they didn't accept that track, I said, okay, I'm going to keep this track for myself, and I'm going to play with my band if I get a band who can play it. That's the question, though. So it was called something Stealth. It's on my. I will send you the link later. Old School Stealth. So it had very much 1970s Bruce Lee kind of feel to the music, like Lalo Schifrin would have written it.
Yeah.
And then the second version was, because this one was more based around traditional brass and saxophone, it just felt a little bit too general. So then I decided, okay, I'm going to do another version of it that's more like aching towards disco beat electronica, but then still have a melody that's vaguely more in the flutes area. But then I said, no, this sounds too modern. We need to maybe take it down a notch. And then it's like, the song, he's a ninja. Ninjas is flutes. Flutes, ninjas, and funk. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to redo this song one more time, and this is what ended up to become Seku's theme in the end. So the flute has not been a dominant instrument in Street Fighter for years. I said, yeah, that's the thing. We got to have to do it that way. So.
You did phenomenal with his theme. His theme, Manats, is those. I feel like going forward, like with Street Fighter 6 or whatever the next major numbered entry is, you've literally marked your legacy in the Street Fighter franchise.
Oh wow, thanks. Yeah, I mean it's a very hard. I mean, when I write the music, I'm sitting alone in my room. I have no one to ball my ideas against until I send it into the music supervisor. And he says, change this and this and that. But pretty much everything I put in are all my own ideas. But then when Capcom says, this is fine, boom. I mean, the thing about Minat's song, for me, I never thought it would be anything special about it. I thought, okay, this is very, very simple. But then people are like, wow. I was like, huh, interesting. I did not have that feeling when I was writing the song. So when people are bringing that, like their ideas, how they interpret the song, it's like, oh, I really like their theories around what they think I did. So that actually, yeah, I mean, that's so fun to see people talking about music. Or, I mean, music is a very subjective thing. Everybody's different with things. So, and I know you cannot please everybody. So even if it's like a bad comment, what can I do? It's already out. I don't need to worry about it. So it's like, don't worry. I mean, it's crazy. I go from Ed hip hop to Menat, which is German post rock, according to them, and then getting into jazz fusion, funk, like 3 complete separate genres of music, and still be one guy doing it. I mean, a lot of people just very typecasted into just doing one genre, right? So yeah, I wasn't sure if it was going to come back, and that's at the end of season 2. I was given another request. You know what? We can actually bring arcade modes into Street Fighter V Arcade Edition. And we feel your music fits very well if we're going to revive Street Fighter Alpha 2. Okay, all right. So thanks to Seku, it actually invited me to write the arcade mode for Street Fighter Alpha 2 in Street Fighter Arcade. Yeah. So again,
that was you, man. Yeah. I love it. I love it.
It's a big surprise for me as well. So I was shocked. Like, hey, I thought 1 character, 2 characters, 3 characters, arcade mode, really? So Capcom has just been amazing for me, given the freedom to do all that stuff for them. So I'm very, very happy. But then, of course, then you thought, okay, that's it. Season 2 is finished. Arcade mode is being released. But then, it's like, okay, here's the thing. We're starting season 3 now. And we would like you to to modernize or maturize Sakura's theme. Okay, all right. So, what do you want? So they were thinking like, oh, let's do a little bit of house music. So I was taking time to listen to some Detroit house, and it's like, Yuzo Koshiro has a lot of cool stuff in his staple shuffle house, and it's like, yeah, let's do it that way, because 90s house music, the club scene, was really a big influence for getting house electronic music into fighting games. And I thought, let's go that way. And they said, don't listen to the other versions of Sakura's theme. The only thing you need is melody, but you can phrase it however you want it, as long as we can make it more mature. So can you just bring a piano in there somehow? And that's how we managed to explore Sakura's maturity. But, oh yeah, I forgot to mention that during Ed and Menat's and Seku's characters, not only did I write their character themes, I also did their story segments for their character stories music.
Wow.
So when so there's a lot more music going into the game than I would never expect. So whenever you play a character, you want to see their story. I'm not talking about Shadow Falls, because that was something, a misconception. I did not write music for the Shadow Falls. So this is only for the characters' own little mini stories.
Okay.
So I wrote Ed, Minat, and Seku's mini stories, if we can call it that. But Sakurai only did a character theme. And so, okay, that's it. I'm done. No more Street Fighter V. But then they dropped the big bomb on me for sure. Cody.
My man. I'm the biggest Cody fan. Well, actually, no, there's two of us out here. One who actually is also friends with Michael T. Coleman, the voice of Cody. Her name is Tae Lee. She's Zonk Knuckle. She's an illustrator. She's phenomenal. And I'm the second fan of Cody, and I'm friends with Michael T. Coleman, the voice actor of Cody.
Oh, wow. So. I would like to meet him, for sure. I would love to meet him someday. Yeah, I mean, Cody in itself, like nobody touched that shit. Everybody out in the forums, everybody's listening to the gangster theme in the Street Fighter 4. Like, nobody topped this shit. Like, don't touch Cody. That's like, shit, my nerves. Like, oh man, like, I don't want to disappoint anybody. I don't want to make anyone disappointed. I was like, how do you top Cody? I mean, the legendary Final Fight CPS-1 soundboard from the Real Arcade, super legendary. I love the first level on the track, which I actually recreated on my YouTube channel. It's a Final Fight 1 theme. But Cody's theme was never really defined until I figured out that it was just the opening sequence of that for the attraction mode screen, right? Da-da-dun, 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 da-da-dun. It's like, yeah, okay, there's not much we can do here. So can you modernize it a little bit? And, well, we need some hip-hop again here. So it's like, okay, I mean, Street Fighter 4 track is kind of down low. He's down on his luck. He's very negative. He's like just wasting his time for nothing, basically. Yeah. But then I read his script and I saw his costume. I was like, what is this? What's going on here? Like, oh man. Okay, I need to bring out the trumpets for sure. I need to make a salute to Cody here. So it became very much like a salute to like Rocky, because he has a little bit of that boxing stance. And, but I did not expect it to go that way. Originally, I had maybe 2 other versions of Cody's theme made, where I actually had different instruments doing different parts of the introduction before it loaded off into what we call the chorus, there with the trumpets. But the trumpets have always been there, but they were phrased differently. And but all the other stuff leading up to it. It's like, I don't remember how I did it, but the thing was that I started with the intro.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that they say the intro needs to be a certain length because it should match the character before they start fighting. It should be this amount of seconds before it goes into the song. So every character has 15 seconds of something happening. And it's like, okay, I'm just going to work on the intro first. And then I start writing the beats. Because in the beginning, I thought maybe they want me to song, but no. So I actually had a song structure with a real arrangement. But they said, no, we would like it to be more hip hop. So I actually had to simplify everything and start from scratch again. So it was probably the only thing that we changed. But the other song is kind of an interesting take on Cody's theme until we landed on this one. But I still think when the trumpets come on, that's like the moment. I just feel myself. This is gonna lift. This is gonna lift everybody up. But I'm not sure how well it's gonna be received by the Cody fans or whatever. I just hope I don't piss them all off because I think Cody. Yeah. I was like, I was terrified when they said like, this is good. This is good. We're just gonna leave it there, leave it in sour a little bit, just sit back and relax, and then. It was Combo Breaker 2018, and I just read like, oh, they're gonna reveal a character. There's been like a hint of the character with a wall and the logo of Street Fighter V on the back. There's like, oh shit, they're gonna reveal Cody now, and I'm super nervous. I'm super nervous, but I was like, I think I missed the reveal, so I saw it like after on YouTube. But the thing, because of the video, they actually took out the crowd audio, so it was just a pure video reveal on the live stream. So I did not hear the crowd reaction. But then I found videos like people filmed the crowd, and I was watching those videos, and everybody jumping their heads up, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I felt like a rock star, man. It was amazing to see. So I'm very happy how Cody's theme turned out, because I think I think every time it's about like we call them legacy characters. There's always a certain identity, a certain song emoted through the thing. But Cody has always been the anti-hero for many, many games. He's willing to go the extra mile to do the things that heroes wouldn't do. But now come back and take a position role of a mayor. Yeah, trumpets, man. Trumpets. Salute.
I remember the reaction. Everyone, I have to say this: the production values that went into the reveal for Cody were phenomenal. With Kenny Omega portraying Cody, like the style of the trailer, I was like, because I was at Combo Breaker, I'm like, what's going on? And then when they say, hey, Mr. Mayor, and he's like, oh, it's Mayor Cody Travers, and everyone was getting hyped. And then when they started playing the music, everyone lost their mind. Everybody.
I mean, it's so cool how they shot the trailer, because in the beginning, you're just like, is this CGI or is it?
Yeah.
What's going on here? Like, but then it's like, wait, what's going on here in the scene? And I need to be honest, because before this moment in time, I did not know who Kenny Omega was. I was not aware of this trailer thing. I was not part of this recent fighting Capcom Pro Tour or anything of these events, because it just came to me so late. So I started watching since season 2. I've started to get more involved to see the character reveals at these fighting tournaments on stream. But when people are screaming, "Wow, it's Kenny Omega!" I was like, "Who's Kenny Omega? I need to check this guy out." So and it turned out, wow, you probably know, everybody out there in the chat room knows Kenny Omega. But then I found out, wow, he's actually a wrestler here in Japan. So I was like, now this is crazy. I'm going to try to write to him or something. And so I wrote a message to Kenny Omega. I said, hey, man, I wrote the music for Cody Travers on Street Fighter V. I hope you like what you heard. I love the way you portrayed the character in the video. And then he sends me a message back on Twitter like, "Oh shit!" So maybe we'll go out and have something to eat someday. That would be fun. I would like to meet Kenny Omega. I mean, I guess they're 20 minutes away from Tokyo, so I'm pretty okay. We will probably run into each other maybe on I don't know. Tokyo Game Show is next month, perhaps. That would be cool if I could meet Kenny there or something.
That'd be awesome.
Oh
man, that I mean, just the way I'm just gonna tell you, as a Cody fan, and I'm gonna speak for all Cody fans. We love what you did with his theme, and I can understand the pressure that you were under, because Street Fighter 4 Cody theme was probably the hottest theme in that game. And I know that's got to be hard to top, but you did such a fun. Thank you. Thank you for what you did.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes. I mean, once I heard the people cheer and scream and jumping their head and nodding up and down, I was like, oh, everything is, my pressure is gone. So I'm just so happy to make you guys happy. So.
Yeah. That song I played, like when I do my Street Fighter V streams, that's my intro song, that's my intermission, it's my exit. When I go to the gym, I'm lifting to that song. That song is amazing. Like it's the minute the horns hit, I'm like, that's it.
That's when you go into HIIT mode, right? High intensity workout. Yeah. Now. But the strange thing was, and that was not intentional either, because the intro, Capcom said, "Oh, we like this intro," and then people talking about the intro. Now, it's reminiscent of a little bit of the old Cody from Street Fighter 4. That's what I was imagining it to be. But then people like, of course you cannot copyright chord structures. You cannot copyright chords in itself or the way the chords are played. It's actually quite fitting when people say, the show must go on by Queen. Like, yeah, Cody's just leaving his past behind him. It's just time for new. It actually fits somehow. And it was not intentional. It was just pure luck. Right after, it's like, oh shit, it's Queen. But no, you cannot copyright chord structures. So I see that as a homage to Cody's psyche, to like leave the past behind you, move on. You got a new future ahead of you. So from that point, I'm very proud over how Cody turned out, and the way I saw him the first time when he was like in alpha, when I saw him move, and the way he was correcting it, like when he's not having his chains on, he still feels like he's touching his arm, like he's still having chains. Like he forgets he's unchained. It's so many cool little quips he does with his hands. It's like that's an animation. They paid so much attention to all the things, every little punch. He does something, and it's like, man, they put so much things. So the things I see, he didn't have those quips yet, but when I saw him in motion, and when I saw his classics final fight combo with a punch, pump, scratch, and then the knee to the stomach, and then throwing away to the other side, I was like, man, that's awesome. That's a nice callback. And then he got his Tatsu, the clearing move, and it drops a little bit of life bar there, like a homage to. I mean, it's great.
And what's funny? What's funny is, like, when he first came out, when I want to say the first couple of weeks of first month, people were really complaining about Cody. They're like, oh, he doesn't play anything like Street Fighter 4 Cody or Street Fighter Cross Tekken. They're like, why is he so different? And I remember I was with my friends who we grew up with Final Fight in the arcade, and we're like, what are you guys talking about? This is Final Fight Cody.
Classic Cody.
Yeah. We're like, the 3-hit punch to the uppercut, the Tatsu kick. They're like, why does it take health away? I'm like, that's what it did in Final Fight.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's like the people coming in from like Street Fighter Alpha 3 or something like that. Yeah. They never played the original games. Yeah. Please check it out. The real games kick so much ass. I love the first stage. I love the warehouse music, the funk that's going on in there.
Yeah.
And it's just that mood the first level sets is so legendary. It's still an awesome game. I still play it on PlayStation 3. If I find someone online, I just like to go back and play it. So, yeah, for sure.
All right, and we're down to my last question, and then we've got the questions from the Twitter users. My last question is about G. So the thing about G has a lot of mix of things, from synth to EDM to techno to like a southern Louisiana Bourbon Street vibe to it with the horns. Was it hard creating the theme, and what was your inspiration for it? Because it's phenomenal. Again, I love it.
Oh! I mean, again, G was like, what kind of guy is this? And like, and I had no idea what's going to happen with this guy. And they said, we want a little bit of synth music. We would like you to mix these instruments in there, but we don't want you to lose the style of the synth music. So the instruments need to like give that extra flair to his personality. I was like, no, well, he looks like Abraham Lincoln to me. So let's bring in, because he's talking about earth all the time, and guy, it's like, what's the most earthly instrument you can play? That's a violin. It's made out of wood, It's like, that's how I took it. Like, that's how I'm going to express his character, is through the violin, some flimsy way, like his Dixieland improvisation violin cuts with all the trumpet stuff. I mean, that was probably the easiest part to do, was the brass, because every time you hear a trumpet or a saxophone or something like that, that's me playing it for real with a wind synthesizer with the properties of these physics model instruments. So I actually have the real range of the instruments. If I blow too hard, I can actually get an overtone series of this instrument, especially Seku's flute thing. It's all me performing that instrument in a computer. That's the craziest thing, right? So I got this new violins from this company, and I was like, finally I get to use them to something. And like, oh, sorry. Sorry, I lost my ear. Too much hand gestures. Oh, man. Okay, I can hear you again.
Okay.
Man, I'm so excited, you think? I mean, G in itself is a very strange enough and earthbound character, but he's very strange at the same time.
Yeah.
But they basically said, we would like the synthesizer to be part of that, and he seems like kind of I'm not very religious, but he seems like have the redeemer kind of feel to him, like he's gonna save everybody of us. And I was like, they were asking a little bit of a Depeche Mode, so I was like, let's take the drum rhythm from Personal Jesus in there, dum 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 dum. It's like, and I put that as a basis for the tempo, but all the other little synthesizer quips was just stuff that just came through my head. But then now I'm starting reading comments like, wow, this sounds like Jean-Michel Jarre's Oxygenate, or like these kind of outworldly synthesizer experiments. And I'm like, I love the comparisons to that. So, but that was not my plan. I was never about to do that, because I haven't listened to Jean-Michel Jarre for a very long time. So for me, this is all fresh out of my head. So, but when we get to the Dixieland part in the song, Louisiana, as you said, it's like I was just jamming and having fun. But when I got to that little, I think I started with the trombone first, and then that was just like a natural fill-in I did. And I said, no, if I can play it with all the instruments, we actually have something that aches towards a character theme. And I was like, that's going to be this little riff. And so I tried to play all the instruments, and when we get to that moment, all the went and so it was just a very natural way to express this character through improvisation. So nothing was written down; everything was just happening very organically through the process of this song. In the beginning, this song had maybe 2 or 3 different versions as well, where I actually broke into real Dixieland jazz from the synthesizer. But then, then there is this split that it just doesn't work because it needs to have the synth thing going through the entire song. So I had to rethink the way that the violins and the brass should just be a touch of something extra on the side there. So yeah, I mean, and also at the time, when I saw his gameplay video from the stages that I had and the way he was speaking, I had no idea he was going to do these taunts after every punch, or he's going to like walk away, snap his fingers a few times, you know, like very cocky attitude, you know, like. So he is a very fun character to watch, and he's completely original.
Yeah.
But then, strangely enough, I never played Street Fighter the Third Strike, so I was not aware there was another character called Q.
Q, yeah.
And I'm not sure how this happened, but maybe I'm just speculating here. I don't really know if there was this plan all along to give him the outfit of Q because of the music choice that they chose, that we're gonna make synth music or something. But if that's the case, I actually don't have any answers to if G is Q or vice versa. So I have no clue. I'm sorry, fans, but if I'm crazy as I think, then maybe I inspired them to make the Q costume because of this music sounding like a Q-like kind of music.
Yeah.
Then that would be awesome if it was that way. But I'm not sure. But for me, that's crazy. If it's true, I don't know. But if it is true, well, thank you. But yeah, it's. I mean, it's so funny when people say like G and Q. Because I don't have any relationship to. I never played Street Fighter 3, so I don't know what his music sounds like. But people say this is definitely Q's theme. I never heard that song my entire life. I swear, this is all things from my head. So there was nothing. There was nothing. Take a theme Q from Q and put it on G's theme. No, there was nothing that in the description. So that's what I'm laying my conspiracy theories to rest there.
I mean, I have a feeling there's a possibility. I mean, based on the second outfit, and many of his attacks are the same. But then, you know, some of my friends in the FGC, we were sitting and talking. We're like, it could be, it could not be. But at the same time, from Street Fighter 2 to Street Fighter 3 was a whole generational gap with the characters. And so with 4 and 5, it's kind of like the missing
prequel
piece
to that, right?
Yeah. So it's trying to fill in the story. We don't know. I mean, there's possibility that there may be, you know, with season 4, there may be another big story that finally explains how Gil, the Illuminati, and the group from Street Fighter 3 came to be, because all we've got now is build up. So you never know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, I mean, this universe is so big now, and I just couldn't believe after Street Fighter 2 they would go further, you know, with all the Street Fighter Alpha games. And then Street Fighter 3, there was an animation breakthrough of this fluid, beautiful animation. I really love the style of it, but I never got the chance to play it or get into it really deeply. So, and then that's when I became a little bit of a King of Fighters kind of guy for a while, from 94 to 1998, I think. King of Fighters 98 is probably one of my favorite games at the moment when it comes to music as well.
Yeah.
But then how do you top these games? Because in the core, they're all Capcom developers. The King of Fighter guys actually are ex-Capcom employees. So I mean, it's for me to be part of a real series and not a spin-off. For me, that's just unreal. Yeah. And I had no idea there were so many other composers involved with Street Fighter 5, because I do know I played Street Fighter 4 a lot here, but it was like the music was made by one guy. So it was like, yeah, I mean, it had like an identity through game, through the choice of the production. But then we got to 5. I was never really involved or didn't play or listen to the game until season 2. It's like that's when I start to realize, wow, he's working on this game. oh, he's working. The Finnish guy's working this. It's like many legendary names are, and it's like, why, why am I involved? You know, it's like it's crazy that I mean, technically, when I left Sweden, I had nothing, and I did not expect to end up on being part of something this big at all. So it's just been being at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
It's basically how the way it goes. And I know some people asking, how do you break into the industry? And every person's story is very different. For me, it was just a competition that led me into pop up on some agent's radar. And from there on, they just helped me get to these gigs. And but today I'm freelance. I'm pretty much open for anybody to, if you want me to write music for your game, or for any, oh, sorry again, sorry again. So I'm open for anything basically right now to be a part of an indie game or a AAA game. I'm all for it. So so anything that's awesome to make, it's cool. But the most craziest thing that ever happened to me, a game I was never part of originally, was well, some people say I did a job on Resident Evil Revelations 2.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what? I didn't write a single note in that game. What's going on here? And I checked the scroll text.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, the end credits. I was like, special thanks, Daniel Lindholm. I was like, what for? And then I see people start playing the raid mode in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they remixed my theme into the game. Wow, this is a really cool take on my themes. So I got probably credit for the theme melody of the raid mode. So that's where my special thanks comes in there. So yeah, I was pretty honored to do that. But all in all, right now, I'm just happy to be here. I'm the Japanese standard I'm having here. I feel very comfortable here. I feel very safe, and whenever I get to work with this Japanese game companies, I just feel like it's very, very exciting. But I do wish someday to write music for a game from beginning to end, like be just right, yeah, from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where the Japanese game industry is a little bit strict, because remember, time is money here. That means you seldom get to write an entire game by yourself. So there are always a lot of composers involved to fill out the unimportant parts of the game, like small story screens or whatever. So I would love to try to write original full music content for maybe a Western company, but still work from here. Now, thanks to the internet, it's possible.
Yeah.
So I would really love, and I would like to design a new musical identity for a game that's not been created yet. So if you're one of those people out there who's a game developer who would like to have my style or my music, yeah, don't hesitate to contact. That would be awesome to do.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So we're at the part where we ask the audience questions. I know we got a lot of response from Twitter. I kind of feel like you answered all of the questions that they were going to have throughout this entire podcast. The questions of, do you get inside info on the character's backstories to compose a theme to fit the character? I feel like, you covered that already. I think you did. You did, right? I believe you did.
Yeah, I think I did in some way when I got to see the character for the first time, like how I decide to write the music. I have 3 factors that decides it. So, yeah. So we basically took care of that.
Yeah. And then I think the other one we had was the advice on how to break into the industry. Person said they had been writing music for years, but they're still somewhat new. You covered that twice already.
Yeah, but I still think there is one more way I could probably help. Of course, in Japan, like going straight to a game company is not a good idea if you're starting out in Japan. So I would probably suggest find an agency, and then you send your material to the agency, and then they can introduce you to various game companies because they probably trust a person who speaks Japanese and that they can vouch for you. And that's when, yeah, I mean, some Japanese game companies are very non-compromisable, or they are a little bit paranoid sometimes that how can we trust this. But now if you have I just don't know how many games I've been doing since I started in 2008. I mean, I'm already starting to lose track of how many application. I mean, iOS games I've been writing music for as well, and pachinko machines, the Samurai Spirits, the machine that took down Silent Hills. I was part of that pachinko machine. That's crazy. I also did the Castlevania pachinko machine that put Konami in a very erotic violence. Yeah, that was just. It was like, did I write music for that? I was like, oh my god, what am I gonna tell mom? And I was like, it feels like I was writing music for a porn movie or whatever. I mean, I feel so. Sometimes I feel a bit shame to be part of the project that actually tips over a company. But their intention is only to make money, and if that's because I don't care what my music does, as long as it brings that company profit, I'm done. But I actually don't have any real power to tell a company what they should or shouldn't do. So that's always left up to the companies. I'm just do what I'm being told, follow instructions, and write the music. About Capcom, SEGA, and then of course. Grasshopper manufacturer for a Lollipop Chainsaw. I mean, there are studios who are more flexible, of course, but it's about trying to get those people to trust you. And I mean, and I had no idea that Capcom had two offices, for example. Like, I thought Capcom was just one huge mega conglomerate that was just pressing out all these games. But no, they just had one office in Osaka dedicated for Resident Evil. And then in Tokyo, they had the Street Fighter office. So I've been dealing with two different factions of Capcom, but they feel like the people I talk to there now, they're pretty much like a different standard than compared to Konami, for example. So there are differences. And of course, Lollipop Chainsaw, I mean, Grasshopper manufacturer feels more like an indie game company. Like, anything goes. If you come up with a crazy idea, do it, So I would say that. So please pay attention to the company's request, first of all. And if you're doing good, you're probably going to get more jobs in the future. So, I mean, my goal was never to I'm going to job for one company only. So, but when I got Street Fighter 5, it's like, this is unreal. And they say, you're going to get one shot, one opportunity. Like Eminem, really on the spot right there with Ed. I was like, okay, this is it. Let's see what goes. And I was just lucky to get called back more and more because, if you are good at doing quick turnarounds as well. Remember, I probably write a track within 3 hours. As like a basic thing that I can probably say I can send away and get critique on before I continue to wrap it up and clean it up and do some detailing work on it. But when they're asking for changes, don't get angry. Just remember, you're not producing music for yourself. You're producing music as a product that's going to go into a completely different place later on. So I think the first time you receive feedback on your own material, you're going to feel a bit heartbroken. Because you treat the song as it's your own baby. But when you get around the mindset that you're actually a craftsman, you're creating a product, of course, you try to put yourself into it. You try to put your best ideas into the song, and let's see if the guys like it or not. And if they don't like it, don't break down. Just trust them. They know exactly what the people want out there. So with that, feedback is good. Don't take it as a negative. It always helps you to become better as well. And that's a process that through many years now. That's feedback is great if it's constructive, not only saying bad things. So as long as they can be specific about what you should change, do it. Just do it.
I think the next question is from Twitter user Max Newell Kong. He asks, when composing for a video game, do you play the game to familiarize yourself with it?
It's hard to like write music for a game that's not developed. Yeah. So, but if we take Resident Evil 6, for example, it was a great idea on how they wanted to, like, they have a very specific idea how the music would work in the game. And as I said, adaptive music was a term, but there was not so many games at the time that had it. So they told us, hey, so before you start writing music on this game, you should play Uncharted 2. So that was like, okay, I have to buy a PlayStation 3 and Uncharted 2. And I did that. And it's like I started to play the game. And it's like, wow, this is a great story. This is a great gameplay. But my ears, I just couldn't understand what was going on technically in the game. But they just told us, play the game, and we'll explain to you exactly what's going on later on. So after finishing playing Uncharted 2, we went to the Osaka office, and they broke down exactly the mechanics on how they managed to get the music to work in their game. So it was kind of like, okay, so that means I have to learn to write music in a new way. I need to learn how to create adaptive music, which is a different process from just writing a song, because you have to do this process maybe 2 or 3 ways. And when you're done with that, it's my aircon. My aircon is moving the camera, man. I'm gonna turn it off. Hold on just a second. Yeah, it's hot as hell out there. Oh man, and the gimbal is not very kind to me either. All right, here we go.
We're at the end. We're almost done.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm getting rid of certain stuff here. Okay, we're stable. So anyway, what the heck? Okay, stay. Dear gimbal, don't move. All right, I'm going to have to get closer. There's something wrong with this weight. This gimbal is not balanced properly. Yeah, I'm using a gimbal, but it's not on, so it's free floating a little bit. Okay, where were we? Yeah, so we were playing Uncharted 2 to prepare us for the work on Resident Evil 6, and from there on they broke down how the music was constructed in different levels, and this is how you should submit files to us. So the process of just not only writing the song is probably the easiest thing you can do. So from a logistic standpoint of view, how we should deliver the songs, how we should break out and send the stuff. I mean, one song could be up to, from my point of view, between 35 to 50 channels in 24-bit, 48 kilohertz resolution. And that's a huge amount of data you have to send in. And then you also have to write very detailed documentation about where the loop points are. You also have to provide another version of the track before you cut it up. So, I mean, it's more a technical writing style rather than creative writing style. So for me now, thanks to that experience through Capcom, I'm now able to write adaptive music in my sleep because I know the process. But before that, I had no clue how it was going to work, how the music could do the things that we're supposed to do. But the funny thing was, when you compare Resident Evil 6 with Uncharted 2, they're 2 different games, but they set out to do one thing, an adventure. But how the adventure is presented to us, and when I played Resident Evil, when I finally got it, I was playing and I was like noticing something. My music is not adapting. What's going on here? But then you start to notice, okay, how many people are on screen in Uncharted 2 when there's firefights? Maybe 3 or 4 guys, perhaps. And then you have 5.1 surround, you have gunfire, you have close mic gunfire, you have explosions, you have enemy chatter, and all those components takes up maybe 20, 25 channels already there with just ambience and noise. And then you're going to have another 35 to 60 channels of music audio that's supposed to go in and out. You start to see the problem is memory.
Yeah.
So the PlayStation version I played was, forget about dynamic. Don't forget about adaptive music. We're just going to make it single stereo track loop, the simple stuff, right? So when I played that, I felt a bit heartbroken because the idea was fantastic if they could have done it like Uncharted 2. But now I heard, oh, they released Resident Evil 6 again, HD remake or something like that.
Yeah.
So probably now this time they were able to achieve this adaptive music dream that I really wanted. So I'm looking forward when I can get my copy on that and a PlayStation 4, obviously, and to try to play it from start to finish to see if my dream of finally writing adaptive music has paid off. And if it has, then I'm very, very happy.
Awesome.
So that's how we dealt with that. So technically, I don't get to play any games in alpha or beta stage, but sometimes we do get to see a rough video. But that's compromised of maybe a character and some boxes, perhaps. So, yeah, nothing very intriguing about that. So, yeah, that's how we deal with that.
All right, and then I think the last question I see is from YouTuber Xander Scullion. He actually did a review of the Castlevania pachinko machine that you did the music for. Because,
really?
He works at the only pachinko parlor in the United States, in North Carolina.
All right.
So, Pachinko World. That's I believe that's the name of it. That's who has it. So yeah, if you guys want to play that Castlevania game, go to Pachinko World.
But, yeah, that process was really interesting. I mean, first of all, I thought no one will ever hear this stuff because of all the noise in Pachinko Hall, right? But my point of view was just pretty straight. I already had themes ready to go. It's like, listen to this song. We would like it to modernize into more progressive metal style, and so I did that. But then they also wanted to have a string arrangement, so they actually recorded a string quartet that I actually had to write down on paper, but I was not present in the studio. But I heard there was no problem with that. But then in the song in itself, we had just a substitute for the singers at the time. We had a tenor sax and a soprano sax because they're supposed to be singers who's going to sing this. But the lyrics, I mean, it was like, I heard this kind of a little bit of a nightmare story, though, that the singers were already hired. And they were supposed to sing in Romanian. But nobody knows Romanian. So on the spot there, they had to learn to sing in a new language like that. And I don't know if they pulled it off or not. But so I was like, why don't you hire Romanian singers? That would just solve so much time or stuff like that. So I had nothing to do with the recording of that song, though. So I was just arranging, and that's it, basically. So that's a little bit funny side quote for the Pachinko machine. So if you play it, I'm not sure if the Romanian is correct grammatically or not. I did not write the lyrics. I did not do that. I just arranged all the background instruments. That's all. Yeah.
He wanted to know, like, what is your favorite Street Fighter 2 theme?
Oh wow, I love Ken's theme for sure from the original CPS-1 cabinet.
Yeah.
But then when you go to like the next, when they upgrade to CPS-2, when the new challengers came in, Fei Long obviously is a winner in my book, and Sagat. Sagat has this 11/8 meter kind of music that's very cool. I really love the way you can incorporate funk fusion to that. And right now, I'm actually, since I did not get to write Sagat's theme for Street Fighter V, I was thinking, I'm having this little music challenge on my Twitter feed where I'm actually putting out like for my YouTube video what I should do next. And the thing is that I never thought about having a YouTube channel. I mean, it's always hard to find a concept that would work on a YouTube channel. So I was like, you know what? It's not my channel anymore. This is your chance to influence me. This is your channel. So whenever you're sending me a message on Twitter or in comments on my YouTube video, the people out there, the viewers, you will have a chance to form my channel for me. So, but just to make it a bit easier, I'm going to give like 3 song options that you would like me to create, or my version of it. Or if you would like to make the challenge harder, you might have to specify a style to it. Like, let's say we would like to do a Streets of Rage 2 level 2, but can you make it a cinematic action soundtrack instead of house music? So so I would love to have that challenge too, because I think that really puts me on top of my game. It's a good way for me to keep training and to see what people would like me to do. So right now, my YouTube channel is your channel, basically.
And
So
definitely
send me a request. Yeah.
Everyone that's watching, everyone that's listening, please make sure you go and subscribe to Daniel's YouTube channel. I have the link down in the description below. So make sure you go, you subscribe, and you hit that notification bell. So anytime he puts up any new content, you'll be the first ones to know.
All right. Thank you.
But, any other projects you're working on in the meantime, or?
Right now, I'm living on a hiatus, but I do have other music projects that is not computer game related. I actually have a band. We're actually more like we're two studio musicians, actually. Me and this other guy. This man, he's from the U.S. He's actually a vocal coach, and he's been training and drilling a lot of J-pop stars in their vocalization. And he also been he's actually a tour guide for when people from the U.S., like stars come from the U.S. and need a tour guide. So he's been helping Janet Jackson. He's been a background singer for Janet Jackson. He's been meeting Toto. He's been performing with a lot of famous people. And for me to meet him at a jam session one day, he said, I love the way you play your wind brass thing. We should do something together. And this became this project. So that's where I'm using Ableton Live for my performances. So, and I'm also doing vocals as well in this band. So awesome. It's funny. So we're doing like very different versions of famous songs, but we're also now trying to get more original material in this thing. But the point of this project is not only for us to go out and perform, it's to network. And the other night we have maybe got this girl who's going to start. She's actually a Japanese actress, but she came into this club incognito, but she started talking to him because he's her vocal coach. So, and when she heard me play and said, you know what, it's hard to find live brass sections, plus they take so much money away from the crew when you're performing. So if we could have one guy playing a brass section live like that. So I'm maybe be considering to go out on tours sometime in the future too. Awesome. So that would be awesome. But besides that, I also hope I could work with film. I heard there was some people who made a fan movie about Final Fight.
The Broken Gear. Yeah.
yeah. It's like, and I think the guy from Broken Gear heard my version of Final Fight Stage 1 theme on my YouTube channel. It's like, we're open to work with you on something someday. So I was like, man, I love the cinematography. I like the way he put the colors together. I like the angles, and it looks damn good. But I need to sit down and watch it. I only seen the trailer so far. But you've seen it?
Yes, I've seen it multiple times. I've actually been sharing it with the fight game community out here, Video Gamers Hawaii, and we are all hooked. We're like, we need this to be a series or a movie. Production values, the music, the acting, everything is just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to work on that thing for sure. I mean, I think the cool thing about this YouTube video is like, I mean, when I hear Final Fight 1, I think about Above the Law, Hard to Kill, like all those Steven Seagal movies with music by David Michael Frank, and it's like, and I try to learn that style of music, and that's what I thought. Hey, listen to this, and actually, I actually was looking for David Michael Frank on Twitter as well, and I found his Twitter account and I signed up to him, but he doesn't have many followers. So please, guys, check out that legendary composer, David Michael Frank. He's probably one of the best action composers out there, in my opinion, when it comes to martial arts, modern martial arts movies, for sure.
And I'll leave a link to his Twitter down in the description below, also on the podcast as well as on the YouTube video. So if you guys can, please go over and give him a follow on Twitter as well.
That's awesome. So besides
Working,
that,
yeah.
yeah.
Where can people find you, man?
On Twitter, you can find me at Dropkick Monkey, but instead of an E, you write a 3, so it's before the Y at the end. So Dropkick Monk 3Y, Dropkick Monkey. So very easy to remember. Then you have my YouTube channel. It's a long freaking name there, but it's youtube.com/Daniel Lindholm 2B Studio, all lowercase, no space in between. And then I have a SoundCloud. It's basically Daniel-Lindholm, all lowercase. And on these channels, I just try to release music. Maybe I would love to make a podcast someday, but I don't have any content to really do anything with. So I'm really grateful to be part of a podcast for the first time here with you. And if you need a co-host, yeah, you know where to go. So it's all right. Yeah. So yeah, I'm actually.
I was gonna say, if you had like either Facebook or Instagram, I could link you to Michael T. Coleman, the voice actor for Cody.
Yeah, sure. I'll have Facebook as well. Just look for Daniel Lindholm, and I guess you have to look for a logo. Hold on, let me see. I have it in my somewhere. I went to a network meeting yesterday, and I have my own printed business card. Oops, again, my camera is not really helpful. All right, so I have my own design. Yeah, this is actually a thing. Business cards in Japan, it's always a make or break situation. But of course, printing your own cards in Japan is very expensive. So what I do is that last year I went, like every New Year, I go to Bali. From Japan to Bali, it's so inexpensive. And then I was like, I should print my own business card there. So I printed this one, Diversity. If you see this logo with my name on it, then you're on the right profile, because there are many Daniel Lindholms out there. So if you see this, just ask for friendship, and I'll bring you in. That's no problem.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's definitely been an honor having you on the podcast. Definitely stick around a little after, because I'll link up with you on some more stuff there. But everyone who's watching, everyone who's listening, everyone who will be listening to this on iTunes, Google Play, and other outlets, thank you for coming through. This podcast will be up in a couple hours. It'll be up on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, as well as on I'm forgetting one. Spotify. That's the last one. just look up the Kasanova podcast. That's Kasanova with a K, and you'll be able to find it. This is our episode 42. We've been around for about 10 months now, and we've officially surpassed 66 million listens and downloads. Is amazing, especially coming from a small channel in Hawaii. It's an honor, and it's a true honor, Daniel, to have you on this show. It really is.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, episode 42. That's a legendary number. What's the answer to life? 42, man. It's historic podcast indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for listening to I hope my Swedish accent didn't shine through, so I hope I make myself understandable, man. If I did, I would sound like a drunken little guy from Sweden. It's I never really liked that kind of accent. So I just throw it away. Yeah. So there you have it.
All right.
Go
ahead.
I would like to thank everybody who tuned in to this episode. It means a lot for me to have direct communication with people there, and of course I'm not one of these guys who have fake followers on Twitter. Every account there is real. I love to interact with you, so don't feel afraid. Send me a message, and I will answer them as well.
Yeah, definitely. And make sure you subscribe to his YouTube channel, give him a follow on Twitter and his other outlets. I'll leave links to everything down in the description below. And with that being said, this is episode 42. We are signing out. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great time.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.